come on LinkedIn and say, yes, but the motivation is not, if the motivation is high and the friction is low, or if the motivation is that much, the friction doesn't matter. It does.
Hi, my name is Romo Santiago, and I'm the founder of Experimentation. On today's episode, Gerda interviews Media.Monk's Juliana Jackson. They speak about the hard truths about working and optimizing for mobile, how web and apps should work together, and how much it costs to build a mobile app, and all sorts of other things. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Thanks for joining, everyone watching this. I'm Gerda. I'm here today with Juliana, who is an absolute A/B testing influencer,
Shut up! Don't say that. It's so horrible.
a
According,
guru, a
a guru.
marketing goddess.
I need to put that. Oh no! Don't see. You're playing dangerous games because I have no filters. But yes, I am an A/B testing influencer. Last time I checked.
Nice. And we're going to talk about mobile apps. And I wanted to do this because my own experience as an optimizer is mostly on websites and web apps.
Yeah.
And you are obviously now super into apps, mobile apps, and talking a lot about that tracking strategy, everything. And you recently did this blog article that was really good about the team fragmentation and how even within mobile app teams, like people can't get it together to kind of work together and all that. And I think that if you take a step back with larger companies who have web experiences and apps, it's even worse, right? Like the web teams are so far removed from what is happening within apps and vice versa. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of ask you questions as a web optimizer about how apps actually work and just basically ask a lot of dumb questions about how to bridge the gap there.
None of that shit is done, but okay.
Okay, cool. So, in case somebody doesn't know you, can
A
you
lot of
intro,
people who don't know me. What? Come on.
like, can you intro yourself? How did you get into apps, and what it is that you do these days?
Gerda, if I knew how to answer to that question, I would be probably in a very good space of my life. I'm Juliana. I just do stuff on the internet. That's kind of what I don't like. A lot of people might think because I post on social media that I'm like this super extroverted person. I'm so not. Like everyone that kind of like knows me, like in person or like spend some time with me, knows that I'm like very introverted. So like when people ask me to talk about myself, I'm like, shit. But no, I'm actually if there's one thing that I can say about myself, I'm a salesperson, bro. Like I'm honest. Like I started in sales. That's how I think we met when I was at OmniConvert. How I met you and Ryan. And I was sales vendor side like for the best part of my career. I started in sales, but I kind of like bridged sales with product back in 2016 when I had my first product job as a product owner for Cluster CS, a Romanian software company. It was so awesome. And that was like kind of the first time that I had to optimize it. I wasn't even using the word optimization in 2014. It was just starting to be a thing thanks to, smarter people. So I was always kind of trying to figure out how. Back then, I was saying, how can you make it easy for people on the internet? Very simple, very pragmatic. And I've been in product for a long time, going from marketing to sales to product owner, manager. Like I'm a salesperson, a product person. That's kind of like the thing that I did the most. But when I was at CXL in 2020-ish, something like that, I took all the courses because what the can you do? You're at CXL, you have to take the courses. And I remember Pep was telling me all the time that I should take the technical marketing mini degree. I actually blame Pep for a lot of stuff, like good stuff. Uh, and I ended up doing the technical marketing mini degree, which is one of my favorites. I didn't like the CRO one that much. Sorry. I love some courses from it. But it's just like for me, I never wanted to call myself a CRO, and Romil and Shiva know about this stuff. I don't think I'm a CRO person. I think I'm a product person that has, a lot of experience in different things. So I'm like CRO adjacent. But yeah, when I was at CXO, I took the technical marketing mini degree, And I remember Simo saying that you need to join the conversation. You need to know how to speak with developers, but also you need to know how to speak with marketers and data people and so on. So I was like, I did everything, but I don't know how to implement data collection. Like I got into this panic mode. Did I need it? No. But I was like, I need to do this. I need to learn how to, set up a tag on a website. I need to know what is a tracking code? What's a web browser? Like, and I wrote the technical marketing mini degree afterwards myself. So I left CXO and I said, I'm going to become a digital analyst, which I did in a way. I ended up at Media.Monks and I did it for 6 months. And then I was like, this is cool, but can we just like focus on making it easier for people on the internet? Like I kind of get back to the same predicament I was in 2016. So that's a very long-winded answer to tell you that I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I am a salesperson, I'm a product person that has experience with data and optimization and different things. But yeah, I don't consider myself an A/B testing influencer. Not at all. Like I don't. If I cannot not touch A/B testing, I gladly will do it.
Hmm. But are you exclusively in mobile apps now, or are you still kind of dabble with all this other stuff?
It's actually cool because nobody asked me this stuff. So when um how I ended up with mobile apps, because I'm a product person in my agency, we have two pillars. Is We actually have like 10 pillars, but we have two pillars that work together as platforms, which build apps and build websites, and like we are the devs. And then we have another pillar called data. In the data team, I have a small startup in this 8,000 people agency. I have a small startup which is called digital experience optimization. I don't name it CRO or experimentation because like everyone likes to name it differently.
It's
But
dead, anyways.
is that yeah, exactly. It's Kiro now. But
This is Roma Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch. Now back to the episode.
when I joined Media.Monks, I was put on a client that is a retailer and also like a restaurant chain that has web and app. And as an excited person that read case studies about this specific brand, I was like, oh my God, I did it. But it's a very big difference from the US part of the brand and the one in Europe and how they're building stuff. So we were building their apps, we were building their websites. So when I ended up on this client, I was just doing GA4 implementation, like very basic. Um, and time passed, and obviously knowing how I am very curious, I said like, well, this part of the customer journey in the app doesn't work that well because I was testing actually. So when you test tracking on the app, you have to download the app, the UAT version from the app center or whatever you're using, and then you shake your phone to have tweaks, and then you can see in real time how the events are popping on your screen based on what you click. So, you know, I was like, well, this doesn't seem right. Like, we should do this. We should do this. So I ended up telling my manager, like, hey, can we do a UX evaluation of the app? She was like, yeah, sure. So I do the UX evaluation. I was like, can we do also some, user testing and review analysis? Can we do that? So from that, it ended up being like a whole practice. So I started
Hmm.
working with other clients with mobile apps. Like, I don't work 100% exclusively with mobile apps, but because I have product experience, I kind of like gravitated towards those because I'm more pragmatic. Like, I'm not the type of person that is gonna come and yell at you because I don't know, the CRM or the MDE is not something like I couldn't give less about that. I just want us to have the mindset of testing and to do better for the clients. So sometimes for the users and the clients, and sometimes that doesn't, I guess, I don't know, show as how good you are with math. So that's another long-winded answer. Like you should have known that when you asked me to do this, I will give you long-winded answers. So the
No,
question,
I love it.
yeah,
It's good.
I'm also like unfiltered because it's late for me. So my ADHD right now is like, but yeah. So I work
Um,
mostly exclusively with apps, but I also do web. I have a lot of
mhm,
like e-commerce because I love e-commerce and I worked in that space. Yeah.
mhm. I remember when you used to call yourself the CLV lady.
I wasn't calling myself. People were calling me that, and then I took it because it was cool. It was better than like some other things. Like I took it. Fun times, yeah.
Embraced it.
We should bring the COV lady back.
Hmm. The resurrection of the CLV lady.
God.
Nice. 2024. So, do you have any like favorite industries or type of apps that you like to work with
I
or categories?
I like food apps a lot. You know
Mm.
why? Because it's like it's when you're ordering food, it's very primary needs that you have. Like there's no need for all the I mean, yes, you can make some interesting experience, but like it's a very I posted this on LinkedIn a while ago. If your app says that you're showing me parking spots around me, I wanna open the app and find my parking spot. Like I feel like food apps, because it's a primary need of feeding yourself, right? It's not too much, you don't have outcomes, you don't do jobs to be done to feed yourself, right? um the core experience is very important, and I am not too much of a big fan of new feature development when it comes to mobile apps, because the core experience is much more important. Like if you're selling that you're doing something, your app needs to do that stuff. So I love to optimize for that amazing core experience. So I like food apps, I also like gaming apps, but with gaming it's a whole different, like game food from like food is very primal needs, but gaming, man, like I remember we had the
I mean, it's also primal, just getting dopamine, basically.
I know, but do you know how many data points are in the game? Like I had we had the client that is a cookie besides the other things, and they had a game, and one of my colleagues that was supposed to tag it, I was like, he was telling me, Juliana, do you know how many journeys there are? I was like, yes, that's so fucking amazing. So I do like gaming apps. I want to test on dating apps as well. I think dating apps are more interesting in terms of what you can do from an experimentation perspective. But yeah, like I primarily like very basic stuff that are focused on core experience, because again, like if there's one thing that I can say that I am, is I'm very pragmatic. So yeah, I don't know if I answered that.
Hmm.
But food apps, probably also because it's not easy to look like this. It's just like the food. You want to put food in everything.
I love food.
Yes.
It's so good.
Oh yeah.
But like that was one of
Sorry.
my tracking questions for you actually. Like let's say the gaming apps compared to food apps, right? So there's no in-app purchase. And you just said that there's so many touch points and journeys and
There's
all
a lot
that.
of in-app
So
purchases in games. Oh my god. Depends on the game, but okay, I'll shut up.
okay. Okay, but let's say an app that doesn't have uh an in-app purchase and
Yeah.
it's mostly about engagement. So how would you approach like tracking that or the success of the app?
Yeah. So obviously it's gonna be engagement metrics, user
Mm,
engagement, open. Like basic thing is like this: you download the app, that's a metric, app downloads. You remove the app, which means deleting it, but it's also doesn't mean uninstall it, like two different things. Then you have obviously daily active users, very product metrics: daily active users, monthly active users, average revenue per user, like very simple product. Like if it's exactly like a software company. If like you would sell SaaS, it's kind of the same principle, even if you don't have mobile order and payment features in the app. So you are focused on engagement, you're focused on functionality, error prevention, or how do you recover from error. Error is like so underrated. Like that's one of like the most prolific data points in an app. Errors, like the messaging from
mhm.
the errors, the recovery, or what happens after people see specific things in the app, like do they adopt them, do they turn them off. So kind of like this thing should be in all apps. I think in all apps you should look at engagement, and purchase is kind of like one of those. Like if you do this part good, it's back to that core experience, then people might purchase, or refer a friend, or do other engagement that you
Mhm.
can put in an app. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Um, I read Hacking Growth recently, and that's like a marketing book from 2017, like 7 years ago. And obviously, 7 years is like eons in digital marketing.
Yeah.
But it said that at the time, at least, Apple users need to opt in to receive notifications, but Android users are opted in by default. Is that like still true? And how
Yes.
does the whole like opting into notifications even influence doing experiments and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, it does. So basically, here, Apple, as you know, has their own approach to privacy, and they are in their own way, their own interpretation of privacy, right? So they're trying to give the user control over how they want to be uh, engaged with, right? So if you want to, be notified by certain things, you have to opt in for those things. So Apple is kind of like doing it in its own way. On Android, it's a bit different. I have an Android phone. Like for me, I don't mind it, but I do turn off notifications manually afterwards. It's not the end of the world, but Apple does their own thing and has their own approach, and they're always like very user centric when it comes to anything. And of course, that poses a lot of damn, my hand is very big. That poses a lot of issues for tracking. And for instance, I remember uh one of these releases, maybe it was 14 or 15, one of the releases where you couldn't I think it was 14.5, when you couldn't track too much anymore. If people opted out completely, you couldn't see that data, so you were missing like 25-35% of the data from the Apple Store of downloads and I don't know, uninstalls and sales. So what we did at that point, we actually tried to estimate how much 35% would be to have at least some sort of directional and don't imagine I did that.
Mm-hmm.
People smarter than me did that, but that's how we dealt with. And yes, it can impact, of course, A/B testing and personalization, because it's not that the audience is smaller, but it might be not representative necessarily. Because if you don't want notifications, it's clearly, that you don't can be with or arse with. So I would track if people turn on notifications. Like that's an interesting data point, because that shows more interest and intent and stuff like that. But it does, yeah, affect, of course, the sample size. But again, that's not my biggest problem. My biggest problem is it representative? Because you can have a load of data, and is it useful? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting that they haven't changed that in the past like
As
7 years or
as far
whatever.
as I know, they didn't, but I might be wrong. I should have researched this, but I didn't have time. I might be wrong, but as far as I know, it's
Mm-hmm.
you have to, like, when you install anything, you can choose the way you want to
Mm-hmm.
uh be bothered or not with it. But again, like, this is very on brand for them, and everything that they're doing is to keep people locked into their ecosystem, and they have kind of their own ways to interpret privacy and engagement and stuff like that. Like even now, for instance, with PWA, initially they said that PWA is progressive web apps, which are like an they're like an app type that you can download on your home screen and you can use it, but it's actually a web
Mm-hmm.
page. It's not a native app. So they were saying initially, because of the Digital Marketing Act, they will stop the PWA in Europe, because for PW, what DMA wanted was basically to let developers build PWAs to work with other browser engines like Brave or Chrome and so on. And that's disaster for Apple, because they want people to use WebKit and Safari, their browser engine, because they want to keep people in their ecosystem. It's not because they're like evil giants, it's because it's very expensive and very risky to allow people to come with make believe, like apps that work on, I don't know, Opera or Brave or whatnot, and put them in the ecosystem where they can put at risk the security of their users. So as far as I know, this didn't change, because it's very on brand for with the notification, is very on brand for Apple, but who knows? I didn't have time to
Mm-hmm.
check, to be honest, if this changed.
Okay. But if you look at like iOS and Android experiences in your work, like do you see like massive differences in the user journey, or how do you even like approach the strategy and research? Do you have to do like two sets basically, or how do you approach that?
This is such a good question. The experience on iOS and Android is very different, because the users of Android and iOS are very different types of people. So, what we did on a client was actually do the research and surveys and interviews to understand what's the Android user versus the iOS users in the context of that client. Like we actually did surveys and interviews, and basically what we noticed is that people that are on iOS are mostly, funny enough, they were younger people. They were people that were much more focused on lifestyle and fashion and photography, like more, I don't know, whimsical people. That we found those types of people also on Android, but people on Android are kind of like more focused on functionality, focused on um, making sure things are working fine. Which is funny because the reviews and ratings on Android were worse than the ones on iOS. I don't know how is that possible, but basically on iOS people were rating the app higher, and then on Android it was lower all the time because this one app that I'm thinking about, the experience was a bit different. One fun analysis we did is like when you purchase something through the app, you can customize it. So customization is one of the biggest levers to mobile order and payment, because it shows obviously intent, but it also shows that you want to actually go to the end and do the purchase. But the funny part is on iOS, it was taking people between 8 and 15 screens to customize that specific product, and on Android it was just like 5 to 8, and we were asking like, what the fuck, why? But then we realized that people or iOS were like more undecisive because the experience was different. So we're still working to do some A/B testing, because then is when you actually want to A/B test. Like that's an interesting challenge, like to do. It's not kind of like what I do appreciate about app, and I want to say this here, recorded then on the record, is that I do appreciate that um, people in the teams are not as, choosing my words, uh, precious. Precious is the word. What I do like about mobile apps is that people in teams and developers and the whole squad of product are not as precious about being so to the T with statistical significance and calculating every little that you take. It's mostly about you prototype a feature, you flag it, you do feature flags. It doesn't have crashes, it doesn't have rage clicks, it doesn't have like uninstalls. That's enough. Like we're looking more at signals than at if a test won or lost, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
it's kind of like it's exactly like in SaaS, right? You're focused mostly on, did we correct the experience in a positive way? Do we, because we don't look at the revenue, we don't look at COV. I know, like hard for Juliana to say that. Like we don't have those type of goals. The goals that we have, which that's why I really like this space, is mostly like, did people uninstall the app less? Did we have such a big drop off since we fixed the onboarding or since we fixed the customization? And people are like, no, actually it does better. Oh shit, it did? Well then let's open the feature in another market. Let's open it in another market. Let's assess. The thing is that to do A/B testing in mobile apps, you need an app release for each test. That's a lot of technical debt.
Yeah, actually, wanted to ask you about that because you just posted about like if you do any implementation changes, you need to basically release a new version
Yes,
of the app, right?
yes.
Like
Developers don't
that's
really like
crazy.
that. Yeah.
Right. And then, but you said it's like not always necessary or something,
Yeah,
or
so for
how do you
tracking,
know?
yeah, for tracking it's not always necessary, because you can still do some things if it's a PWA or a web app or a hybrid app. There might be some things you can do in the tracking tool, in the interface, GA4 or Amplitude, whatever you're using. But to do like actual tracking measurement stuff, you need to do it in the app code base. So developers need to do it.
Hmm.
You write it nicely, the measurement plan, and then you give it to the people to do it. So for A/B testing, is the same. Like for each A/B test that you do, you need to do an app release, and there is feature flagging, or you do also a pre and post. So you enable the feature. Like not everyone is doing like so like to the TAB testing. Like it's foreign. Like the way you do it on web, when you have to see, oh my god, how many weeks do I need to run it? Do I look at 80% confidence or 85 or not? Like that. I I can. I'm sure if people will listen to this, like, oh my god, no, that's a catastrophe. That's blasphemy. I use my calculator. Where is it? Calculate. No, in the real world, you don't do all that shit. It's basically, again, like the goal. I'm not saying all teams are like that, but what I've experienced. This is me, right? I'm not speaking
Hmm.
for people that work at a. Yeah, I'm gonna shut up. But that's my experience, and I stick to it. people
Hmm.
that work in this space are more interested in functionality, experience, making sure the shit doesn't crash, making sure you don't have low performance, because performance is a bit different for engineers and developers than it is for us and marketers. Like they couldn't give a shit about, I don't know, some sort of campaign and promotion. They care if the user can log in, log out, can be in the app doesn't crash, you don't have bugs. Like the battles that you fight are a bit different. So I found it very hard to sell experimentation and like um beautifying things and you know random things that you would do in web app,
Hmm.
because it doesn't matter for them that much. Their biggest
So it's more like robust or.
is very different, and there is no
Hmm.
such, like, when I wrote that article that you mentioned and you participated in, I liked Jim Gordon said this: not all silos are built equally, and some silos are actually centers of excellence on their own and not in the classical way of how we in the CRO community are defining centers of excellence. Sometimes basically you just have to let people do what they do and try to come and support versus bulldoze with. If I would go right now to some of the developers that I work with and tell them about, I'm sorry, but we need to run this for 9 weeks. This feature needs to be in the market for 9 weeks to get confidence and to get, power to the test. And they'll be like, what? Why? And then it's like, oh, because that's how, people on LinkedIn write that we should run tests. It's like, I cannot be, how can I be an A/B testing influencer this year if I don't do that? I'm sorry, I'm terrible. See, why did you invite me? This is what you invite me, I will talk shit. That's this. Sorry, Romeo. You can delete this whole part.
So one of the differences in terms of teams or team like structure that seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like in web, you have web developers and they very rarely do like the tracking implementation. Like
Yeah.
sometimes they help or whatever, but usually we as CROs kind of put together the strategy for tracking and implement it as well.
Yes.
So in mobile, it seems that there isn't like that type of position. Like the developers are the main people that do that work, right?
Yes, but they don't know how to do it unless you tell them how to. So it's
Okay,
like,
so strategy is still
yeah,
you,
you
right?
need it. You need it. Like you're the thing that connects everything together. Like you do need it. Of course, they don't know what's the latest, best practices on a J4 data layer or some stuff like that. So you need
Mm-hmm.
to build these measurement plans, specifically tell them like what's the event, what's the purpose of the event, where should it fire, why should it fire, what are the parameters, what's the value of the parameters. You do a measurement plan, you give it to them, and then they write it in the code base, and that's how it's done. So you can, again, there's some tools and configurations, and obviously it depends, right? But primarily you do need the developer to do tracking in native mobile apps, because it's a difference. If you do web apps, it's the same. You can do it too. I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not the best idea for me to do it. I'm looking for my water. I'm sorry. I'm still here.
No worries. So I'm gonna throw like a case study or use case at you from a web experimenter. So let's say I'm working on a website where one of the main goals is to get people to download the app. And then basically I'm running tests on landing pages to get them to do that and whatever. And then I want to see if those people that converted through the test, like what are they doing in the app? Is it even possible? And how do I combine kind of the web engagement and all that together with the experience in the app? Like, is that now simpler with Firebase and GA4 because like some years ago it was like so difficult still.
I haven't tested that, but if your G4 implementation is correct, you're tracking
Mhm.
web and app, and you use the audiences in GA4 that contain app data to run tests if you're using GA4 with an A/B testing tool, and most people do that by now. So if you collect user ID and client ID and you have the audience built in GA4 that you're using for the A/B testing, which contains web and app, it all depends on how. It's kind of like your data quality depends on your data collection mechanism, to quote
Mhm.
Simo from years ago when I heard him say that. So that was very short.
Okay. Well, yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be that easy, but yeah, like
I mean,
many years ago, we
easy,
were.
easy, easy. You know how easy it is. It's a
There's always problems
yeah,
and
but
tech debt and whatever. So.
in theory, if you do proper data collection in
Mm-hmm.
GA4, your audiences live in GA4. You have in GA4 data from your ads, from your Firebase, from Search Console. It's kind of the same. If I urge people to collect user ID. That is very important to have user ID and client ID depending what you're using in your test.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's kind of like just another audience in GA4, if of course everything
Okay.
is fine. I feel like it
Cool.
was too short, but that's
It's
all I have.
overly optimistic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I'm trying, man. It's like the end of the day for
Hmm.
me. I'm trying to be cool right now. Yeah.
Nice. Also, so we touched on saws and what are kind of like the similarities there, but basically everyone's saying that the SaaS app development is being sped up because of AI and whatever.
Mm.
Are you seeing that in the mobile app industry as well? That people are releasing stuff faster or whatever, or the development is still like too different for that?
No, I mean, given that in the development sits in Media.Monks, and I talk to these guys, like, yeah, we use AI for experiences, improving the experience, improving the delivery of content or copy or whatever, but we don't to the actual aspect of app development and writing code. No, it's still
Mm-hmm.
people doing it,
Mm-hmm.
thankfully.
So, okay. And like this is probably an impossible question, but like
Uh,
if somebody wants to build a mobile app, how much does it cost? Like, do you have any ranges or how does it compare to like web development or anything like that?
Damn, bro. Yeah, I I mean, it depends, right? Do you want to build an
Mm-hmm.
app? It's like, let's talk about let's imagine a Chrome extension. You can build a Chrome extension on your own, and if you know how to code, or you can figure it out. So with apps, for instance, if you build an app that just shows you the weather, you need the interface. You need the, I don't know, IP to location type of thing to track the weather, some privacy stuff, and you can probably do it for, I don't know, 20K, 15K if it's a basic app. But if you want to build a video game, a food ordering app, if you want to build a Uber app or a booking app or whatever, then clearly you need more developers. And developer resource is very expensive, as you know. So you need developers, you need UI, UX, you need data. It's obviously, but if you just want to build a basic app, I mean, you also have to think about how you're gonna host your app into App Store and Play Store, because it's not free. Uh,
Yeah, let's talk about the app stores.
yeah,
So basically, you have to pay them for your in-app purchases. My amazing Googling skills said that it's like
30.
30%.
Yeah, I checked to make
And
sure. Yeah,
and so does that only apply to like digital products or like let's say you have like an e-com app, uh do they then take something from those purchases or how does that work?
it's for digital services and for goods per se too.
Mhm.
It's it's very similar to the Shopify model. So when you build an app on Shopify store, you need to pay. I think when I did it last time with the reveal, when I was at Valentin at OmniConvert, it was 30% that you need to pay. So a lot of people, not us, we were behaving, but a lot of people create like to try to game the system, would build like a proxy to send you to another website so the transaction doesn't happen in that context. So,
Mhm.
but that's not legal anymore with Shopify. I checked some
Mm.
months ago because somebody
Yeah,
was asking me.
because the first kind of example that came to my mind was Kindle, where, they show you the books in the app, but you can't buy them. Like they make you
I
go
know it's so
on
fucking
the
annoying on
website.
Amazon. I hate it. I don't know how they're doing this because like I
Mm,
cannot read any more books like at all. I can only read on my phone because of my ADHD. I have no patience, and I hate it when they did that. Like 2 years ago probably they started doing that, because in the
Mm.
beginning you could buy the phones from the app. Like I bought so many, even now, like I have books that I bought because I haven't bought it ever since. So I think the last one I was buying was Gucci's main. Don't ask. Gucci Mane's. I read other shit, like his no, Rick Ross's biography. That's the last book I bought.
Nice.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm weird. Did you expect that? Probably not.
No, that was a surprise.
So, well, when yeah,
Um,
there you go. I have even the Britney Spears memoir too.
oh, did you read that already?
I have Elon Musk's one. No, I have the sample. Because
Oh,
what
okay.
my behavior, the reason why I'm opening the app to show you, is that you can only get the sample on the phone, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
read that, I get satisfied because it's a lot. So I don't go and buy because like nobody trying to go to the website to do the purchase. I want to do it on my phone. So they might think I wouldn't recommend doing this from any point of view. Like yes, of course it sucks when you give 25% or 15% or something like that. I what I know because I asked people is that now there's like how do you say it in English? Um I forgot the
Threshold?
English word. It's like you can make a sort amount of money. Oh, it's capped. That's the word.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
cap right now on how much you make, and if you're under a certain like threshold, you don't have to pay 30% is less or something like that. Like there were some adjustments, and I actually asked one of the developers to prepare for this interview, and he told me this, and then I said, "Can you give me a link?" And he was like, "I don't have time," but I still love them. But it's I know they are the one of the developers said that they made these changes because a lot of people were trying to game the system just like they're doing with Kindle. But I wouldn't recommend doing this because if you interrupt the experience that people have on the app, especially if they're reading, come on, bro. Like I want to read something. I read the sample. I'm so excited. Like yes, for sure, people will come on LinkedIn and say yes, but the motivation is not. If the motivation is high and the friction is low, or if the motivation is that much, the friction doesn't matter. It does. When I was a CXO, me and Kyle actually were thinking about the cancellation process, and we try to simplify it and make it easier because we realize that if people want to come back, they will come back. But if you make it hard for people to cancel their subscription, they're going to be so full of resentment, they might never come back. So it's kind of like a long term type of loss.
Wanted to go back to the e-com apps too,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because like really big e-coms like Zara, ASOS, whatever, they have, regular web mobile experience, but they have the purchasing and apps as well,
Yeah.
right? So do you have any like advice on how big a company has to be in terms of when is it the right time to launch a mobile native app alongside your regular purchasing experience or whatever?
Just look at your traffic sources, and if you have 90% of people coming from mobile to your website, and look at what is the revenue from desktop versus mobile. If mobile trumps it, it's time for you to move
Then
on. Yeah, into the
you should
world.
already start like investing.
Yeah, yeah. Or just the
Hmm.
PW. Start with the PWA. Start with the web app first, and test the waters, and then build a native app. Like you don't have to start. The native apps are more expensive, but you can build a PWA or a web app or a hybrid app. But I think this is also in general a lot of traffic to websites recently from all the websites I've seen, and God knows I've seen so many websites in the last 1 year and a half. Most of it is like 70-80% mobile traffic.
Yeah, especially in e-com, we're seeing the same thing, and oftentimes we don't even like test on desktop
Yeah,
anymore
yeah, yeah.
because if the 90% is on mobile, it doesn't make sense to invest in testing on desktop.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I agree with you, and you shouldn't test on web before your visitors are on mobile. It makes no sense.
Hmm.
It's like
But I think it's still like a hard balance if you're saying that, even a simple app build costs like 20K,
I
and
just throw a
if
number
you
at
have a
you.
pretty, yeah, yeah, and probably for an e-com it's even more, right? So it's like, when is the right time, or what type of revenue do you have to have?
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you're just starting out and you're just hitting your million or 2 millions and in e-commerce, that's nothing considering how much it costs
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, have the business online and stuff. Probably not, but it depends on the goals of the company, how, much money you're making, how many customers, like traffic, it's a sign, conversion on mobile, it's a sign, people accessing your website mostly from mobile, it's a sign. So you would do a bit of research, you would ask people like, hey, what do you think about an app? What do you think about this? So it's a natural extension to the experience, because I'm gonna share this link with you after, like the mobile app report from 2024, and mobile apps is a $6 trillion type of
Yeah, I
industry.
saw that in your blog post actually. I was like, what? That's a crazy number.
But it's where most people, and that research is so good. Like I don't really look at research that much, but that one is so well done, and
Hmm.
it has like a lot of, it's statistically significant, I guess. So like, if everyone uses their phones all the time, like if you advertise for them to them on Instagram, on Facebook, and who the uses Facebook or Instagram on desktop? My
Yeah, good
auntie,
point.
my auntie, she's
Yeah,
playing those
boomers.
games. Exactly. But if your market is, I don't know. Also, an interesting thing that I want to share here that I learned recently, it's who are your buyers, right? Because if most of your buyers are people that are Gen Z or like close to millennials, the classic advertising and sales channels don't work anymore. Like right now, for a client, we're actually building a Roblox game because most of their um, users and potential buyers are actually teenagers, 20-year-olds that play Roblox. And you would think that Roblox is just a game for kids. So my son plays Roblox. Well, one of my kids plays Roblox. Oh, there's like grown ass people on Roblox. And Allianz actually had a great one. They built a Roblox game where they were teaching kids how to insure their goods, because in Roblox you get a lot of like drops in game.
Hmm.
So then people trade those for other types of items. So a lot of people were scammed in the game. My son too, like he was scammed of his items because he was doing like this type of
Oh no.
exchange. Yeah. So Allianz thought, how can I teach younger people, younger generation about the importance of insurances? So they created the Roblox game with this like uh, you know, uh, super, what do you call them? Like superheroes, with superheroes in the game. And it was basically educating kids on how important it is to insure your goods before you exchange them or you put them on the internet. And I thought that was really awesome. I was like, whoa, that's so more and more people create in-game experiences because that's the only channel that they can reach out to the younger generations. And uh my son, like he's 12, right? But he sees in Roblox or in Fortnite, and he says, I don't know, I want the new Travis Scott, shoes or stuff like that. So that's another, like, I feel, and taking all responsibility for this. Is like, yes, like it's still good to, do the common sense things on web and app, for sure. As you see, I'm not saying best practices because yikes. But what are your channels? Like, that's interesting. Like, how do you A/B test that? How do you push a video game and you get people from the video game? Like, how do you, quantify that? Like, that's an interesting way of, for me, like it's something that's really obsessing me lately, and that's what we're trying right now to do with the client, to create like a skin in Roblox that you can buy and try to educate people. So that's kind of like where my interest is lately, especially if you want to reach certain audiences. So that's also very important. And coming back to your question, figure out, like if you make enough, if you're profitable enough and all your traffic and it's coming from mobile, do a bit of research in demographics, also like interests and stuff like that, to see what are ways where you can reach these people that are not so, classic. Like I'm very curious
Hmm.
to see like an industry report on desktop versus mobile use for a lot of stuff, because like, and that's why I get a bit eyelash when I see best practices for web that show desktop. Like, man, like,
Yeah.
of course, if you're a bank, for sure. If I'm gonna listen, so this is the mentality for me as a millennial. If I need to do some bank that I cannot do in the bank app, I gotta go on desktop. So when I go on the desktop is when I'm booking flights. when I'm doing some like important shit that actually requires a lot of mental effort, right? I'm not gonna shop on my desktop for shoes or lipstick or I don't know, random shit. But if I need to book a flight, if I need to do some financial shit or like an application or shit like that, then it's when I'm gonna use the desktop. Anything else?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like almost desktop has this serious adult bureaucratic
I
vibe or
know, right?
something.
Yeah, I just realized this talking to you. Like
Hmm.
you go on the desktop when is real. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Uh, yeah, another, I guess, optimization question for you was about the early on triggers in-app user experience. And like I've read that a bunch of companies, when they, start an app, they kind of amp up the triggers in the beginning to show that there's a lot of engagement, and then that like puts up the stats. But then that
Mm.
actually ends up backfiring because people get so annoyed. So it's like, do you have any advice on how to balance the short-term engagement with long-term retention and usage and all that kind of stuff?
Marketing response. It definitely, depends on the app. But so, like, we can take an example. If it's a food app, of course, you want to send notifications about sales and promos and the sandwich of the day and shit like that. And I think those are fine. But if your app is an e-commerce app, let's say it's I don't know, Adidas. No, not Adidas. I can talk about them. Let's say it's Zara. I can talk about Zara. Let's say
Mhm.
Zara. Oh, actually, I know one that's annoying. About You. So About You, it's a fashion
Mhm.
app. Bro, they kill me with the notifications. Like, I do love to browse because I do buy. I'm a heavy purchaser of clothes. Like, I buy random shit. I do a lot of retail therapy. But I you have to like pick your battles with notifications and getting people in the app. Like, you have to ask yourself, like, is this worth stopping this person from their day to share this type of notification? You gotta like be strategic, I guess, with the type of stuff you want to get people to open the app. You're also always gonna you can, when you just build an app, you can always you look at first open, which is the first time they open the app after they download it, and then you can look at very basic metrics like 7 days activity, 14 days, 30 days. And yes, you can focus much. I think if my advice would be to focus more on onboarding people into the app versus trying to constantly get them into the app, because I always go back to this, like, you want to build a habit. Like, if you don't build a habit from the first use of the app, it's very hard to get people to use it again. So like, to fashion brands, like, if you build an app, you have an app and you get somebody that downloads it from the first time, show them around, show them where, like, they can go to see promos and whatnot. Like, do a nice, like, onboarding with, great like screens, and show them where it is. And then I would ask, and I actually did this. You ask people, like, what do you want us to notify you about? So then people choose what they want to see. So if you kind of like build an experience that the user is in control in the app, which is very important since it's your phone. Like, there's nothing more private than your phone, in my opinion. Like, it's the most private thing you have. I would say and advise people to let the user have the sensation that they're in control, and let them pick what they want to see, but focus on the onboarding experience. So important. So many people like underinvest into things like change password or login. You would be surprised how many people bounce and uninstall apps because they just cannot even log in into the app. Like, if you cannot even
Mhm.
log in, or to see a welcome screen where it tells you click here to see this shit, or click here to see this, notifications
Yeah,
don't
we
really work.
see.
Like,
Yeah, we
you can
even
do.
like basic kind of flows where even like on web, if you sign up for something, the like confirmation link is like broken or
Yeah, yeah.
something that
It's
hasn't
and the
been.
cognitive dissonance is like,
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
hate it. I hate it so much. Yeah,
totally. Well, I feel like I could talk to you forever, but
you should.
Romil probably Romil probably doesn't want us to have like a 3 hour
You will
podcast
get bored at
episode.
some point. Oh man.
So Yeah, any last thoughts you want to share about like web and apps working together? What should people pay attention to? What's the big problem we need to solve?
I would say that there's no competition between web and app, and it shouldn't be. It should be a cohesive journey because people will use both types of channels to reach to your brand. I would say that I prefer apps and product in general because I always felt that in I'll say it, I always felt that in the community, in the experimentation community, sometimes there's so much focus on literature and science papers and all these best practices things, and like I do see their place in time and purpose, but I do appreciate that in this context of mobile apps and devs and product, things are more pragmatic and they're more like a lot of people say that they're using all this literature to make better decisions, but actually it's kind of like gatekeeping a lot of people from trying to A/B test or trying to run just a feature flag. I feel like if you want to help the industry and the community and push it further, people should gatekeep less and stop being so precious about every little thing because people get scared and turned off because of that. So that's why I felt like I found my place in mobile and product because people don't make me feel stupid because I haven't read some science paper on Google Scholar about statistical significance. So yeah, that's kind of my last words.
Nice. Well, I think yeah, a lot of CROs and web people also can learn a lot from like how app people do things and how to coexist, especially in big organizations.
Yes.
So I really appreciate your time. Thanks for answering all my
I
questions.
had fun. That's fun.
Yeah, me too. So good luck, Romeo, editing this, and I'm sure we'll talk soon again.
Put this Optimize is the best tool I ever used.
Love Optimizely.
Yeah, both of us, please.
This is Roma Santiago from Experimentation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch. Now back to the episode.